Good afternoon, everyone. Matthew, can you hear us in the Zoom room?
I love the stadium.
Yes, I can hear you well. Thank you very much.
That thing up.
Great.
I
Okay.
can't get used to it. I don't like it.
Chair Crandall, it looks like we are ready to go when you are.
Okay.
Yeah, Susan told me, and so, sounds good. Well, it's sounding like we're closer.
And we're at 105. Just put on the Zoom account. All right. Welcome back, everybody, from the lunch break.
Could I do a quick sound check, Mr. Chair? I want to make sure Matthew's got us.
Yes.
And Johanna as well.
I'm here.
I can hear you well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Welcome back. We will go ahead and take up our next item on the agenda. I'm thinking we'll go to the extra item, 4.1. Yeah.
And so the title of this extra item, I'm just seeing there's a error on my memo, but maybe Johanna caught that. Anyway, what I'm asking your board to do is consider postponing your special meeting, which was set for this Thursday, the 3rd at 9 a.m. to hold your annual governance workshop that day because Supervisor Simon cannot be present. And so I'm asking your board to postpone that and at the same time schedule another date, if you will. And so some dates I wanted to propose. Originally, we were looking at possibly 1 week later on the 10th. However, it's since been determined that that isn't a good date because the Planning Commission is meeting the same day. Not only are they in here, but they are using the Zoom webinar function. So even if we wanted to do your board's governance workshop in Zoom only, we would not have the webinar feature because it will be in use. So looking at other dates, dates that I wanted to throw out are March 9th or March 11th. And Carolyn Purdy is in the Zoom with us as well and can look further, or at least she was earlier. Yeah, there she is. I'm going to bring her in. Carolyn has access to the Chamber's calendar if we need it to find a date.
All right.
The 9th or the 11th work for me.
The 11th works for me.
The 9th would be better, but I could do the 11th.
And for the 9th, I have a LTA APC meeting. And so since both myself and Supervisor Simon are on there, I'm guessing that Supervisor Simon will not be able to make it at that one either. And so I think that I need to be at that meeting. But the 11th is wide open. If it happens to be the 9th, I'll see what I can do to figure it out.
I also have the RCRC meeting on the 9th. And then the 10th is a Blue Ribbon Committee meeting, so I'm actually grateful it's not that day either, so, yeah.
So I think I'm hearing 3 for the 11th. Did you say the 9th was your preference?
I could do, oh, I could do the 11th.
I'm free both days.
Oh, okay.
Sounds like the 11th.
11th.
The 11th at 9 a.m.?
Yeah.
And Carolyn, just to confirm, no conflict in the chambers?
No conflict, that works.
Can
So
Tim
then,
change the calendar alert?
the auto-populating on your calendar?
Yeah.
Yes, we'll work on getting that changed. So again, just to confirm, you're agreeing to actually, I guess I would say cancel March 3rd and reschedule for March 11th. And if that's correct, you may want to do that by motion,
And that's again 9 a.m. on the 11th.
9 a.m. It could be flexible if you need it to be, Supervisor.
No, just checking.
So I'll open it up for public input. Is there anybody in the chambers that would like to comment on this? No? And let's check the Zoom room. I got it back up, so I'm good. Don't see anybody in Zoom, so we'll bring it back to the board for action.
I have a question.
Yes.
Last year, we had a homework for this, right? And do we have homework this year?
No, you don't. The department heads have homework.
Okay.
Have been working very diligently. They're going to present you with the State of the County report, where they have taken the Vision 2028 and divided into 4 groups of department heads, and each group will have a presentation for you, and then there will be lots of discussion about all of that and further priorities, et cetera.
Okay. So I move that we use that we move our special governance board meeting from March 3rd to March 11th at 9 a.m.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second. Johanna, please conduct the roll call.
Okay, Supervisor Sabatier,
Aye.
Supervisor Scott,
Aye.
Supervisor Pyska,
Yes.
and Supervisor Crandall.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Looks like so our item 4 on the agenda is complete. Now let's move on to our non-timed items, back to those. And is there a preference, CAO Hutchinson, on which one of these should be done first or with time restraints?
I do not have a preference, Mr. Chair. If you'd like, I could also, Mary Darby has an item there, 7.6. I can reach out to her and find out what time she could be available, but perhaps you want to take up the other things before that. Oh, she is here in Zoom? Okay, so then with that in mind, Mr. Chair, you may want to take that up so she doesn't
Okay.
have to wait any longer.
So we'll do item 7.6, consideration of county's participation with Clerk in CAL FIRE funding programs. And with that, go ahead and give Director Darby the floor.
Hello, everyone. Good to see you again. So this particular project is the Clear Lake Environmental Research Center is requesting that the county or the Community Development Department to consider the uploading of 8 categorically exempt projects into the state clearinghouse to begin the public review process. The scope of the projects are to reduce fuel loads, which will reduce the spread and severity of a wildfire should one occur. The Clerk projects, which are coordinated by a grant that was awarded to CAL FIRE, funded by a forest health grant, would support removal of hazardous vegetation in CAL FIRE's highest priority areas in Lake County. The 8 projects are identified as the Lake County Wildfire Resilience, Benmore Valley Forest Health, Darner Forest Health Project, Shambhala Hazardous Fuel Reduction Project, Rothman Hazardous Fuel Reduction Project, South Cobb Forest Health Project, the Loch Lomond Hazardous Fuel Reduction Project, and the Sigler Springs Hazardous Fuel Reduction Project. In order for CDD to upload these projects to the state clearinghouse on behalf of Clerk, the county would have to be considered as lead agency. CDD supports the Clerk projects based on the need for such work and to support the vision of the Lake County General Plan, Public Facilities and Services Elements Goals, which is to continue to promote cooperative fire protection agreements with the California Division of Forestry and to provide added fire protection on a year-round basis. To that end, CDD request is asking the Board of Supervisors to approve the request by Clear Lake Environmental Research Center, Clerk, for the county to act as lead agency solely for the purpose of accepting Clerk's environmental determinations that there are specified categorical exemptions for projects to be undertaken under the Forest Health Grant Program and posting those applications with the State Clearinghouse for the required circulation period. The CAL FIRE's Forest Health Program works with local partners to address fire prevention and to improve forest health. In a partnership role, the county may act as lead agency for the purposes in which I described above. Since this request is an unusual role as lead agency where the county approves and issues use permits or maintains oversight of other land use actions, CDC is requesting the board's approval to act as lead agency for the Forest Health Grant projects. past experiences, the county has embedded the indemnification provisions of land use applications into the project, but this is no longer the case, as an appellate court decision was made last year. So the county standard for indemnification provisions must be contained in a separate agreement, and therefore, the CDD, acting on behalf of the county, would request that Clerk and CAL FIRE enter into an indemnification agreement with the county. So that kind of concludes my report or request.
Thank you, Director Darby. Do we have any questions from the board? Supervisor Spatier?
Yeah, I have a question. Actually, I have a couple of questions about this. You said this is an unusual role, and I'm kind of curious as to why. CAL FIRE is the one who received the grant. Clerk would be doing the work regarding the grant. Would it typically be CAL FIRE that would be the lead agency on this versus the county? Just kind of curious how we ended up with an unusual situation, or has this never been done like this before?
So CAL FIRE would originally be the lead agency. However, in the past, I believe the CDD department has entered into these type of agreements, but not gone through the appropriate formalities.
Of getting the approval from the Board of Supervisors?
That's correct.
Okay. And I guess one of my questions was, and I guess it's a process question of, again, something that I'm unaware of, that most land use type of decisions would go to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission has not reviewed this, has not had the, it's not been brought to the Planning Commission and only gets brought to the Board of Supervisors for that approval?
Well, the reason it hasn't gone to the Planning Commission because these are categorically exempt projects because of the fire hazards. And so it would not be required to go before the Planning Commission. And the only reason that we're bringing these projects to you is for approval to act upon as lead agency to upload the projects unto the state clearinghouse for review.
Right. And then one of my other questions is the exemption. I was doing some research on what are the appropriate Sql exemptions, and in some of the packets, it discusses potential disturbance of the ground, because they're looking at potentially cutting some brushes, and I'm guessing not digging into the soil, but at least disturbing the soil with the removal of certain fire hazards. I get it if, like for example, if a tree is sick or if it's been burned, it's Sql exempt to go ahead and take out the tree, something along those lines. But under the categorical exemptions that we're looking to utilize, I was looking at a Sql exemption paper from 2020 here, and it says the cumulative effect of successive projects of the same type in the same place over time is significant. And I think this is not something that's going to happen once. I think this is something that we want to happen every so often. And so I want to make sure that our Sql document is as appropriate as possible to ensure that if we do this again in 3 years, if we do it again in 5 years, because we want these things to happen every so often to keep protecting our communities, that does not pass the line for that Sql exemption clause. Another one is the project may cause substantial adverse change in the significance of a historical resource. I know that there's a lot of archaeological and cultural sites throughout our community, and I know it discusses that in the Sql exemption paperwork that was submitted. But at the same time, I don't really read too much about mitigations within, and so I guess I'm somewhat my question, I guess, is at what point does a Sql exempt become a mitigated neg deck where mitigations are required? And again, my goal is to make sure we have the strongest document to be able to use this again and again and again, however long we can use the same Sql document that's been approved versus just a Sql exemption.
I understand. So this particular one this case, there's no required mitigation measures for this particular one, these projects. And the proclamation actually goes towards and deals with drought, extreme drought conditions, and through most of the urgent challenges that we have with wildfires, that this particular item is categorically exemption. However, you raise very good questions, and I would have to actually go back and review if every 3 years, whether or not this would continually be impacted. But from these particular projects, I understand that there's going to be vegetation hazard removal of projects, and there will not be a lot of dirt disturbance or anything that would disturb the earth.
I forget which one specifically that I was looking at. It might have been Saratoga Springs or South Cobb, where oftentimes uses the word potential disturbance. And that was my reason for bringing some of that up, just to, and again, a one-time I'm okay with, but if it requires an elevated process to ensure that we can pull this off the shelf so that we can do this again to protect our communities rather than starting all over from scratch. Those are my last questions.
Ms. Grant?
If you don't mind, I can just say that while these documents can be very useful for future such projects, as the CDD director's already stated, each one's going to have to be reviewed independently if they arise again. And you know, the circumstances environmentally change, and they can change not just from internal factors, but external ones. So I think that's why Ms. Darby was saying she'd have to look at them when they arose again, and that would be what CEQA demands, certainly.
So if I may interpret what I just heard, whether it's an exempt or mitigated neg deck CEQA document that is produced and approved, that there would still be that same level of review, is that correct? And I was wondering, I was interpreting Ms. Grant's comments.
Oh,
Go ahead, Ms. Grant.
that would be a correct interpretation as to what I said.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Sabatier, you have anything to add to that?
I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, is there any other supervisors? Nope. We will move on to public input for this item. Anybody in the chambers? No? Let's see what we have here. I'm not seeing anyone in the Zoom room with their hand up. I'll bring it back to the board. And let's see what we got. Okay. Okay. So let's see, lead agency. The action is to actually, I don't know what the action is. Yeah. Yeah. Consideration of county's participation in Clerk CAL fire funding programs, and then in the recommendation of the action, so it's accepting Clerk's,
Lead agency?
yeah, as a lead agency. The county may act as lead agency for the purpose described above. And does this sound right?
I think it's as simple as saying approve the, first we got to approve the indemnification agreement, which was provided to us, and then approve being the lead agencies for all of the projects listed on the item. I think that should be enough.
So is that your motion?
Yep.
I'm actually questioning that.
Anita's shaking her head yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I do both in one? Do you mind if I?
Go ahead.
So moved.
We have a
Second.
motion?
Oh, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Joanna, please conduct the roll call.
All right, Supervisor Sabatier,
Aye.
Supervisor Scott,
Aye.
Supervisor Pyska,
Yes.
and Supervisor Crandall.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And so now we will move on to 7.3. Thank you, Director Darby, very much for that. Discussion and possible renegotiations of certain provisions of agreement approved on September 28, 2021 with RCHDC. Discussion and B, discussion and direction on audit for financial activity regarding loan and loan forgiveness regarding Collier Avenue project. And this is from District Supervisor Bruno Spatier.
Thank you very much. So this discussion started a while back. In last year in April, we did the movement of all the assets to the Housing Authority. In September, we approved it, the loan forgiveness. This has now gone to the Oversight Board Committee to discuss. It's obviously not a simple matter. There's a lot of moving parts to understand and make sure that things are done appropriately. They have still, as of yesterday, they had another meeting, had a good discussion, and have postponed final decision. Hopefully, maybe next week, I believe they're supposed to meet on the 7th. And I can let Ms. Grant and Ms. Parker is also on the call with us. I know they were both in the meeting, if they want to allude to any of the summary of what happened in the meeting. I still am looking, I think that eventually there needs to be a fixing of sorts within the agreement that we did, because there is some, there are some items that we approved that need to be corrected. Again, this project I would love to see moving forward, but I also want to make sure that we do it appropriately. And as far as the discussion for direction on audit, I am still looking for all of the financial information, and therefore, since that has not, in my opinion, been provided to me in a way that I believe should be provided, I still would like to see an audit eventually. But I think that at this moment in time, we need to wait for the decision from the Oversight Board and then bring this back to our discussion with the changes that are required based on the decision made at the Oversight Board.
Thank you. Ms. Grant, did you want to?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I was in attendance and presented some legal information in regard to this matter yesterday at the Oversight Board. And I can tell you that the final action for the Oversight Board was to ask if I would agree to make some adjustments to the agreement. It's not dissimilar to what the Oversight Board did back in March of 2012 when they took up this matter for perhaps the second time, according to the records I have. They made some adjustments. Those adjustments go to securing the financial position of these assets, or at least what might have been distributed to taxing entities. There's an important point here, however, that the Oversight Board approved and the Board of Supervisors effectuated the transfer of these, of the property, any property interest, loan proceeds, loan encumbrances, loan receivables. All of those things were transferred as housing assets to the Lake County Housing Authority. So there may be an issue as to whether and how the Oversight Board could actually claw those back for purposes of redistribution. But while I raised that there might be an issue, I have not looked at that and was not at this point asked to. The gravamen of the Oversight Board's concern back in 2012 with this project appeared to be based on the fact that it hadn't moved forward with any degree of efficiency. And the Oversight Board was concerned that the asset itself would be lost, which is why they put a 5-year limitation to either get the project completed or substantially completed from that date in 2012. Now, that did not happen, and no action was taken. Of course, you certainly are very well aware that for several of those years, the county was involved in back-to-back-to-back-to-back wildfire disaster. So there were a few other things on everyone's plate at that time. However, and circumstances have changed. The RCHDC is in a much better position to be able to move forward with the project. They have a number of successful projects in the very recent past already under their belt, and financing has been secured from multiple private and governmental sources. The agreement as it stands now does include a default provision which would essentially turn the property, the Collier Avenue property, over to the Housing Authority for $1 should this entity default. Given that the 2012 agreement was done with non-recourse loans, which means exactly what you think it means. You have very little recourse in terms of obtaining funding. It's probably a more secured position moving forward than it was then. If the Oversight Board's concern again remains not squandering these assets, then it's a stronger position than it was previously. And the Oversight Board seemed to acknowledge that. They thought it was more about the forgiveness of the loan issue, but they seemed to agree and be satisfied with the preservation of the security. They did ask to have certain provisions beefed up in terms of the default provision. And it was discussed to reinsert a 55-year forgiveness period. In other words, if everything went forward for 55 years, the loan amount could be forgiven. The loan's already been forgiven. And 55 years is a very long time to predict accountability, because most people who are sitting there looking at it are either going to be retired or deceased. So I think there are probably other ways to address this. Also, RCHDC, and I believe that, I thought he was here, Ryan was.
He is.
Oh, he is? Okay, there he is. Hi, Ryan. Ryan was here. He can explain also that apparently the project cannot receive the necessary final funding if there is a lien against the property for the 600 and some odd thousand that remain on this lien. So right now, it's going to go back to the Oversight Board with some provisions that will beef up the default provision. But will hopefully, and I have until Monday next to do this, hopefully provide sufficient assurances in place of the idea of the 55-year forgiveness period. Because while it might look okay on paper, it's largely illusory.
I see. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for that. Susan, I see you're on. Would you like to add anything to that?
No, I just want to thank Anita for all her hard work on this, but I would like to defer to Brian to speak about the issues regarding getting financing and what was some initially discussed, what could pose to be a problem for financing this project. So with your permission, Chair, can I allow Ryan?
By all means. Brian, would you like to add anything?
Sure. Good afternoon. Ryan LaRue, CEO of RCHDC. To speak to a little bit about what Susan was referring to, yes, the existing RDA debt encumbering this property is not an eligible acquisition cost on behalf of the investor. So that is the problem. And so while I appreciate the creative approaches to try to retain the debt or recoup some of that debt, I believe it to be simply hindering the project's ability to move forward. As I've expressed in a previous meeting, we do have $1 million secured for this project of state funds. We have a partnership with Behavioral Health of Lake County. And we have a history over the past 4 years of successfully financing 5 projects with a very similar financing model. And so, we're trying to work in partnership with the county to bring this project to fruition and be very transparent about the dynamics associated with this RDA debt. And so while we brought this to you about a year ago, recognizing these obstacles, that's just what we're trying to convey, is how we can work through this. And I believe the agreement that's currently in place has quite a bit of, holds our feet to the fire as the developer and bringing this project to fruition. So I'm not quite sure what more can be done. And then for our board to then approve of those additional provisions as well. So that's my comment regarding this item.
Supervisor Sabatier?
And I want to highlight what the actual issue is. I don't think the issue is how we move forward. I think the issue is the process that has been taken for money that was received from the RDA for a project that was just erased entirely, and that money, the RDA money, came from taxing agencies. So since it's in the Nice area, we're talking about Lucerne School District, we're talking about Upper Lake School District, we're talking about North Shore Fire District, and potentially other districts, taxing agencies that had pitched into this. And to me, it's important that we make sure that that is dealt with appropriately, since that, I mean, every time we use tax dollars, we need to make sure it's done appropriately, but this is another public agency that provided their tax dollars so that we can do something. I am going to allude a little bit to the another conflicting issue that has kind of come up, because the MOU that is related to this on item 5.3, which I won't discuss in great detail, but it alludes to the original loan was for a low-income to moderate-income housing, and that was the process that was originally taken. The MOU that is related to this property is requesting that it be only for severe mental health adults. And so it's not necessarily the same project either. And I think that is something that doesn't quite fit together perfectly, and I just think that it needs to be clean. So I think the process that we're taking, while it does have a little bit of a pause, I think that it's respectful to those taxing agencies that provided the funds, and making sure that we are not forgetting them in this process as we move forward.
Ms. Grant, did you have something to add?
At this point.
1 second, Ryan.
Okay. At this point, as I said, in looking at shoring up certain of the concerns that came from the Oversight Board, a great deal of this will be addressed, but this just happened yesterday afternoon, so I can't really comment on the efficacy of one approach over another, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you. Mr. LaRue, go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. I would just add that it is in our research and investigation and collaboration with the county staff that these were housing asset funds and are therefore not taxing entity funds. So the argument that was just posed is not applicable to this source of dollars. And so any project that would be constructed with these funds of RDA funds would never go back to the taxing entities. So I don't see how it's applicable.
I believe that is incorrect.
Okay.
I think it all was transferred to the housing authority, which makes it now housing funds, but the origination of the funds comes from the RDA, which is an accumulation of tax dollars from various taxing agencies.
Okay.
Which includes the county.
Did you have something else to add, Mr. LaRue?
Just that our legal counsel disagrees with that statement. So, but they're not on the line, and this is probably not a forum for such a debate.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything further from the Board of Supervisors? Is there any public input? No? Let's check on the Zoom line. And it looks like we do have, what? No, we don't. Bring it back to the board. And with this, the recommended action, do we need to postpone that, or?
And at this point, I would suggest that the conversation needs to be finalized over at the Oversight Board prior to making any adjustments on our end.
And then with the audit discussion, that would still commence after that?
Correct.
So we'll be postponing this until a further date to be determined? Or next week?
I would love to see it come back on the 8th. I don't know if that means that we'll be ready to decide what needs to happen on our end, if anything needs to happen on our end. With something happening potentially on March 7th, it might not be enough time to really recognize, but I'd like to have it there just in case that we are ready.
Okay. Probably, go ahead, CEO Hutchinson.
Yeah, I was just going to say that Mr. LaRue had his hand back up.
Oh, sir, go ahead. Sorry about that.
Yes, sorry, I missed one clarifying point, is that the project is still low to moderate income designation, and that the MOU associated that was presented to you all is specifically targeted for a percentage of units within this project that are designated for individuals with special needs. So it very much, it's a percentage of the project that's targeted to special needs designated individuals.
What percentage is that off the top of, do you know?
49%
Okay.
of county clients that are being served by behavioral health. So they get referred from Todd Metcalf's department.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And so, CEO Hutchinson?
Nothing further.
Okay. So it looks like what we'll do is we can leave this for next week, but also potentially postpone it to the week after, or should we just do the week?
Well, we'd have to put it on the agenda because the RDA doesn't meet until Monday, and so if we didn't go ahead and post it on the agenda, you wouldn't be able to discuss it on the 8th,
Okay.
so,
Okay.
yeah.
Go ahead, Mrs. Grant. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The only thing I can say is that I will have these adjustments proposed and available to the Oversight Board for their Monday meeting. But of course, I cannot say that they might not want to tinker or adjust somehow. Okay. So I can't tell you that it will all be resolved on the 7th as much as I hope it will.
Okay, thank you for that. So it looks like we'll just go ahead and leave it for next week in case there is, but if there's not, we'll make adjustments and move it to the week after if need be, but that way it's there in case we need to discuss it. How's that sound, Supervisor Sabatier? Good? Okay, I did public input, and we're on a path forward on that one. So with that, thank you, Mr. LaRue and Susan. We will now move on to item 7.4, consideration of resolution authorizing county administrative officer to execute a funding agreement with Pacific Forest and Watershed Land Stewardship Council, approving the county's receipt of $824,583 in lieu of property taxes related to the transfer of 907 acres located near the Eel River Lower Trout Creek area from the Pacific Gas and Electric Company to the United States Forest Service. With that, I'll give it to CAO Hutchinson, and she can go from there.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And so Patrick Sullivan is coming back into the Zoom. There he is. Our tax administrator is going to present this item.
All right.
Good afternoon. I can provide some further background on this item. This stems from the PG&E settlement in 2003, which passed multiple conservation aspects over to other agencies. So land has been transferred, in this case, from PG&E to the U.S. Forest Service. Part of the agreement provided for tax neutrality for local jurisdictions. In this case, because PG&E is giving this land up to a federal agency, it will no longer be subject to property tax. So PG&E during that settlement set aside a pot of money, and that lays with the Pacific Forest and Watershed Land Stewardship Council. And Aaron Healy, their new executive director, is on the line as well to answer questions. An agreement based off this action was actually approved by your board back in 2019. There has been a small change. The number of acres went up just slightly by about 20 acres or so. The amount of money involved in this transfer went up a little bit. It's now $824,583. It used to be $796,993. So this increase required a new resolution and a new agreement for your board to consider. And that agreement does show the area that it's in, but just for reference, this is generally that area up around Lake Pillsbury, Potter Valley project. PG&E has a large amount of land holdings up there. Part of this already went to the Potter Valley tribe about 2 years ago at the same time that this agreement was crafted. But the bulk of this land is being transferred to the Forest Service, and that's what's before you now. So I'm happy to answer any questions, and Ms. Healy is also available to answer questions.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Healy, did you have anything to add, or?
No, I don't unless you have questions.
Okay. Are there any questions from anyone on the board? Okay, not seeing any. Go ahead, Supervisor.
I do have a
Sabatier.
quick question. Mr. Sullivan, you stated that this is kind of an updated agreement in comparison to what it was before. I don't necessarily, is this an amendment to the agreement? Is this a new agreement? Was the previous one approved and this is an updated version?
The previous one was approved, and so this agreement now, well, I may ask Ms. Grant for assistance on this, but this agreement is superseding
Oh, there it is.
that prior agreement.
There it is. I just caught it. Okay. Thank you very much. It's on the first, be it further resolved. I had missed that, so I appreciate that.
And there is one other point here. I became aware of this about 30 minutes ago. There has been a change in leadership at the Stewardship Council. Ms. Healy is the new executive director. So we need to redo this form to get her name on it. That prior director has now left her position. So I don't know how your board wishes to proceed. We could bring it back on the consent agenda next week, or if it were permissible to amend that name and with that change, place her on it, we could proceed today.
Ms. Grant, go ahead.
You could just change it on its face today, and staff can make the correction for the board chair's signature. It's essentially a ministerial change. Your board has no control over who's in charge. It is a good reason why whenever possible, and perhaps this was a requirement here, but whenever possible, you just state the position, not a person's name.
Yeah.
Because people can leave positions unexpectedly.
Right. Especially in this day and age. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. I'll go ahead and open it up for public input, and no public input in the room. And I'm looking online on Zoom, and we do have a public comments in the comment section, because there's only one. I can read it. From Bobby Dutcher. It says he is normally opposed to taking private property and turning it over to the government, but in this case it works for everyone. This is a very generous tax settlement for the county. Now if we can just get PG&E to transfer ownership of Lake Pillsbury to the state of California. I don't know if there's anyone from PG&E on listening, but anyhow, if not, if there's anything to add, or Supervisor Sabatier?
Just curious, in our motion, where are we changing that name? Because I'm not seeing where that is.
I don't think we need to do that, do we? Just,
I think you could just offer the resolution with the...
We talked about 30 minutes ago, we were told that we needed to change something, and I'm...
It's in the funding agreement. So there's a signature block in the funding agreement, not in the resolution.
Okay,
It's
so
on
it's not
page
within-
5 of the funding agreement.
Okay, okay. So it doesn't change anything on a resolution. That's what I was looking at, because that's what we're agreeing to today. Okay.
All right.
I offer the resolution.
Resolution's been offered. Johanna, please conduct roll call.
Okay, Supervisor Sabatier,
Aye.
Supervisor Scott,
Aye?
Supervisor Pyska,
Yes.
and Supervisor Crandall.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sullivan and Mrs. Healy, for your assistance on that. We will move on to item 7.2, consideration of letter of intent for skate park regional project in District 2. This looks like Supervisor Sabatier.
Thank you very much. I know some people had asked, what am I doing with cannabis taxes that have been provided to each district supervisor? This is my project that I'm working on. We have a skate park that is falling apart after discussions with Lars Ewing, a concrete park that was installed in 2017. I think that's about right, has had zero maintenance done to it for the fact that concrete parks just don't require much maintenance at all. And so the skate parks are regional draws. I know that I've had many events and competitions happen over at the skate park in the city of Clear Lake, and it draws people from Ukiah, it draws people from out of town, because those people are always looking for the next best thrill, and having a different park to ride in is exactly that. And so the idea is to upgrade it. The idea is to make it a regional draw to bring people in. If people are coming in, they'll stop and eat at the restaurant, and they'll do other things throughout the county that interests them. And at this moment in time, the letter of intent is to get an approval from the board that, yes, this is something that the board is aware of. It doesn't mean that you automatically approve the next time that it actually calls out for money, but in order to use staff time over at the City of Clear Lake, I required a letter of intent to make sure that at least the board was aware and approved of the idea of the project. What will come back to us will be 2 steps. One step will be an RFP for who's going to design the project, and the next step will be an RFP for who will do the construction of the project, and each one of those will come back to us, and again, utilizing the cannabis tax funds that has been allocated for district supervisors, specifically District 2. And there is one change. The skate park letter is intended to be for the City of Clear Lake. We will be signing it and submitting it to the City of Clear Lake. That was not apparent on the skate park letter that was offered, and so that is one change that I would like to make.
Supervisor Pyska?
And how much do you think this project's going to be?
So I believe, if I remember correctly, it was $275,000 for the skate park in Kelseyville. And so I'm looking at around $300,000, which means that from now until possibly July, which is $200,000 that we have, that I would be utilizing a portion of that for the design. The design process can be anywhere between $25,000 and $50,000. And then afterwards, as of July 1st, my hope is that we will still have another $500,000 dedicated to all 5 supervisors, which will increase my allocation another $100,000, which will make it eligible to at least pay for the majority of, and then looking for grant opportunities and looking for the City of Clear Lake to match or work with us to be able to make that happen.
And the city is going to be matching, or have they made any commitments?
There is no promise to make it happen, but they are very dedicated to make this skate park project happen. Absolutely.
All right. You still have something?
Oh.
And just to add to that, but I will not be coming back to ask for anything more than what has been allocated to District 2 supervisors through the cannabis tax.
All right. Open it up for public input. Is there anyone? No, it doesn't look like there's anybody in the chambers, and I will see if there's anyone on Zoom. Nobody on Zoom. Bringing it back to the board for action.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to approve the letter of intent for skate park regional project in District 2 with the amendment to make it the letter addressed to the City of Clear Lake.
Second?
So a motion and a second. Johanna, conduct a roll call, please.
Okay, Supervisor Sabatier?
Aye.
Supervisor Scott?
Aye.
Supervisor Pyska?
Yes.
And Supervisor Crandall?
Aye.
Thank you.
And I'm looking to see if that covers everything, and I think it does. I know it doesn't cover calendars, but I want to make sure I didn't miss the 4 points or the 5 point, agendas, but it looks like we did, so we're good. We'll go to calendars, and we'll start with Supervisor Pyska.
Okay. So tomorrow morning, the TID board meeting, we have CDD committee, a tree mortality task force, and in the evening, the Middletown Unified School District special board meeting. Thursday, were you able to make that?
That 9 o'clock suggestion, yes, I was going to check in with you about it, but yes, I can make that work because we canceled the workshop, so.
Okay. All right, so I'll get back to her. So we're going to be meeting with a supervisor from, I think it's Mariposa County?
Would you like me to set up a Zoom for that?
That would be wonderful.
Okay,
Thank you. And to talk about tree mortality and how they dealt with it there. Then I have a tour with Director Pam Samek, then Gail Woodward, and I actually am getting to the end of my orientations now. I had to push them again. So,
Get it done before your 4-year term's up.
I might. Friday, I am going to have to miss the weekly planning meeting for the home hardening. I have a doctor's appointment. And then Saturday night is the Cobb Mountain Lions Club crab feed, which I'm super happy to be participating in, although I'm doing the drive-up delivery pickup. Fiddler's Jam is on Sunday, if anyone's interested in going out to the Eli Stage Stop. It's the first Sunday of the month. Monday, we're going to have our first Lake County Ag Advisory Committee of the year. Looking forward to that with our new department head. And then my meeting with Carol's a little bit later in the day. And then I've got a meeting with the Lake County Fire Adaption Workshop Planning, which is a planning meeting through our CMAT committee from the Risk Reduction Authority. We're going to be having some workshops that are pro bono through this fire adaption planning group to help. The purpose of these workshops is to help facilitate building out our Lake County Fire Safe Council. It's just been a goal all through last year and continues to be a goal this year. And get that council developed, standing on its own 2 feet, and doing what we needed to do. So that's going to it's going to be a really great opportunity for those workshops, and I'm excited about that. And then back here on Tuesday.
Thank you. Supervisor Sabatier?
Yes, thank you very much. Let me see if there's I took part of the Blue Zones summit that occurred last week. I'm excited to, I didn't bring it up during our COVID-19 conversation, but bringing up our health metrics makes me think of the work that's going to happen here with Blue Zones, and I look forward to seeing how public health and Blue Zones really work together to enhance the opportunities for better healthy living here. And so that was a good summit to be a part of, very stimulating conversations. I did have some RCRC information, and I need to email that to CAO Hutchinson and to Supervisor Crandall. There's over 600 bills that have been submitted to the state of California. Every month we heard from RCRC President Pat Blacklock that every month we have an RCRC legislative update. It's just a quick fire round of here are the things that we're really paying attention to. One of the ones that I could definitely remember off the top of my head that I think is an important one that will be difficult for rural areas to deal with is there's a bill trying to separate sheriff and coroner to make them 2 separate positions rather than 1. In urban areas, that could very much make sense. In rural areas, that does not make sense. Have not spoken to the sheriff about this yet, and it's also just a bill that was submitted. It's not anything that necessarily is showing fast movement through the process, but definitely I thought that was something to alert the board to, that there's some interesting legislations happening. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to email that to over Supervisor Crandall and CAO Hutchinson and see if maybe we can bring some of the highlighted moments and have a discussion on whether or not we want to submit letters of support or letters against of opposition for those bills that are out there. Let's see, let's go ahead and move on to this week. The CPUC is having their PG&E rate meetings right now. It's actually starting at 2 o'clock to 6 o'clock. Will be happening today, March 1st. I believe the next one is March 12th? March 10th. And then there's another one, I believe, again on a Tuesday, which I think they did on purpose so that we can't be involved. Yeah, on Tuesday the 22nd. We drafted a letter of opposition to the rate increase that PG&E has offered to the CPUC. And I think that I'm hoping to work with CAO Hutchinson and make sure that we provide all of the details on our Facebook, on our social media, so that people know how to easily access these meetings. I think it's important that people voice their concerns. We're hearing and seeing everywhere of the increases to people's bills. That's before this rate increase takes place. And so I think it's important that people voice their opinions on this and let it be heard to the CPUC. And hopefully it it has the potential to make change. Later today, if we're all done in time, I do plan on taking part with the Latinos United group, who are organizing an event in Lakeport for Cinco de Mayo. And let's see, then on Wednesday, meeting to discuss some stuff about PEG TV. I'm excited to see where we go with that conversation, and there's some potential positive movement. Well, it's always positive what we're doing with the PEG TV, but I'm excited about some of the possible conversations that will be coming up, and hope to bring it back to the board here to explain exactly what that is. But PEG TV has some exciting things going on. I'm going to take part of the CSAC board meeting since we canceled our Thursday special meeting. It was going to overlap with the CSAC board meeting. Luckily, we're still able to do those virtually. I think at one point that might disappear, so we better start getting used to traveling to Sacramento for some of these again. There's Clear Lake City Council meeting happening later on that evening. My Fridays at this moment seem pretty clear, and it looks like also as of this week, Judge's Breakfast will be back on. We'll be meeting again at the Senior Center at 7 a.m. for those that are interested in following up and listening to the keynote speakers. Middle Creek Restoration Project Committee is meeting on Monday morning, meeting with our CAO to get prepared for our March 8th meeting, and listening in to the RDA successor agency, the oversight board, to see how things are going for the Collier Avenue, so I could be prepared for that conversation on the 8th, if that's going to have any progress and movement. And that's it for me.
Thank you. Vice Chair Scott.
Yes, first I'd like to report that we were supposed to have a Wellville gathering, which is 5 different communities, health communities coming together to Lake County in 2020. We now have dates for those. They will be coming on May 16th through 19th. So it's going to be 4 different communities around the United States coming to Lake County, looking at health matrix and how we're doing that in our communities, how we're collaborating. So that'll be exciting. It's going to be probably between 70 to 100 people coming to Lake County for that week. They'll also be experiencing what Lake County has to offer, and learning about our lake, and learning about our tribal nation. So it's really exciting to get the word out about Lake County and everything that's going on here. And we chose those dates because Blue Zones will be having a summit or a gathering Saturday before that in Clear Lake. So we're hoping to be able to piggyback on all of those, because it's all about health and how food is medicine, and just gathering together, changing all of our health matrix, because we were all chosen, these communities were chosen originally because we struggle with those matrix. So learning how to work together. And that is my role with Hope Rising, that I'm doing that. So looking at my calendar, tomorrow agenda review at 9 o'clock. And then continuum of care on Thursday at 3 o'clock. That's still via Zoom. And then the Ag Advisory Board at 10 o'clock. It looks like they're still trying to get the agenda together for that. So it'll be an interesting conversation. It always is. And then 2 p.m. I'm hoping to go to the SafeRx Coalition meeting, and then just getting ready for the Tuesday meeting.
Thank you. So I will first start off that last week there was a couple meetings, like the visioning meeting, and I want to say I scheduled to be at the Klogba Moose Lodge and things like that. I couldn't do any of those last week. I was enthralled with my mom's funeral and all of those arrangements, so I wasn't able to get to those things, and I apologize to my constituents for that. But this week, let's see, tomorrow we have the Earth meeting, East Region Town Hall, the CSA meeting at 7, agenda reviews at 9 a.m. as well. Thursday, I have the meeting that I meet with Cal 20 Village AR6330, group of folks that are talking about a project that's happening in Upper Lake involving water. Friday, I have a couple of people that I'm working with that I had to cancel with, so I'm going to see if they'll reschedule with me on that Friday for the 4th. And so I have like 2 or 3 of those that I'm pretty hopeful that I can get rescheduled that day. And Monday, CAO meeting 8:45, and 10:30 is the Middle Creek Restoration Committee meeting back here on Tuesday for the Board of Supervisors meeting. And with that,
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Are we meeting with the sheriff and Director Darby after this? I know that was a potential
That's right. Well, I don't think we confirmed if that was today, but if they can still do it, I think we have time now, because I didn't know if we had the time.
Check in.
We'll check in after and find out if that's still a possibility. Yes, okay. And so that may happen still today. With that, we'll go into, we'll move forward. That's our calendars, and we'll go ahead and go into item 8, closed session. Public Employee Evaluation Director, Community Development Director, 8.1, and 8.2, Conference with Legal Counsel, Existing Litigation Pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1, City of Clear Lake versus County of Lake et al. With that, we will go into closed session.